All right, welcome, spongy Bible brains, to the daily Bible devotion offered from Beach Church in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We read through the Bible each calendar year in 3 to 4 chapter sections, and then a group of us in church each take a day and prepare this brief, hopefully informative devotion. Today we're looking at Leviticus chapters 19, 20, and 21, and today's February 10th, 2026. So Leviticus, literally meaning matters of the Levites, or how to worship and live a holy life, has several themes in it. The ones that pertain to these 3 chapters today are really about God's holy character, and then naturally God's will for Israel's holiness to reflect God's holy character. And keep in mind these 2 key points. The purity that we read about in the ritual was meant to reflect Israel's personal purity. And also, as I've already stated, God's people are to be holy because God is holy. Now, this is really important. I'm going to read something word for word, a paragraph right out of my commentary that helps us understand the wider truths in the particulars of this sacrificial system surrounding the temple worship rituals. All these rituals and details that make it very challenging to read. So listen to this very carefully. This is important. When you think about the 5 sacrifices listed, the burnt offering, grain offering, peace, sin, and trespass offerings, they're all symbolic. Their design, listen, their design was to allow the truly penitent and thankful worshiper a way to express faith in and love for God by the observance of these rituals. So, as you'll find out later in the prophets, when the heart was not penitent or thankful, God was not pleased with the ritual. The offerings were burnt. Like, why are they all burnt offerings? Well, the burnt symbolizes the worshiper's desire to be purged of sin and then sending up a fragrant smoke of true worship to God. That's the idea. So that myriad of small details in the execution of the rituals was to teach God's people exactness and precision that would extend to the way people obeyed their moral and spiritual laws given by God, the way they revered every facet of God's word. So the focus of any ritual should always be on the holy and divine character behind it. Now, these 3 chapters today fall in what is the last of 4 major sections of the book of Leviticus. And this section is on guidelines for practical holiness. When you walk out the door in the morning, how do you live holy? Okay. So chapter 19 is all about how you interact with your neighbors. It's neighborliness. Chapter 20 gets into capital or very grave crimes and their punishment. And chapter 21 starts a section on instructions for the priests themselves. So chapter 19 covers a dozen different ways to practice holiness as you go about your daily life. So it talks about revering your mother and father, about how fair practices for paying wages to workers, being kind to people who are disabled, in this case, the deaf and the blind. And the famous passage we all know, love your neighbor as yourself, comes from this chapter. It deals with sexual immorality with slaves. There's one against divination and soothsaying. God doesn't want us to do that. It's against prostituting your children, your daughter in particular. How to treat strangers, and simply being honest in all things, especially weights and scales, not tipping things one way or the other to someone's advantage. That's cheating. So a whole smorgasbord of things to look at there. And most apply to our lives today, even in 2026. Chapter 20, the penalties for breaking the law. These are capital and other grave crimes are discussed here. Many of these same issues are from chapters 18 and 19, and they're just elaborated here with, again, the emphasis on the penalty paid for the violation. And the largest section of these 24 chapters has to do with sexual sins. The exhortation really is to obey all of this so that the land doesn't vomit you out. Remember, God's promises are about land. Abraham would have descendants, he would have land. Okay, so don't disobey this stuff, or the land is going to kick you out. You'll lose that blessing from God. And then chapter 21 shifts into specific regulations for the priests. And you'll notice right away that these regulations demanded a higher standard of holy conduct than for the general population. There's two notes of interest. One, there's the regulation on marriage. And you might ask, why was it so strict about who the priest married? Well, that's because that marriage relationship between a priest and his wife was supposed to reflect the relationship between Jesus or God and his people, or the bride and the bridegroom, as Jesus would say in one of his parables later. And interestingly, the last section of this chapter reviews requirements for purity for any priest placing the showbread on the golden table in the tabernacle. So the priest can't have any physical defects. It's kind of interesting. We might ask, why? It seems cruel to exclude someone from this calling and duty who isn't a perfect physical specimen. The explanation harkens back to realizing that the outward rituals, again, were meant to point to inner truths. So think about it. Just as any of the sacrificial animals or objects had to be without blemish, so did the one offering the sacrifice. Physical things exert a strong impression on the minds of people. So any physical impurity or malformation tended to distract from the weight and authority of that sacred office. It also failed to externally exemplify the inward wholeness God was seeking in his people. And finally, jumping into the future, it failed to be a perfect picture of Jesus Christ, who was the perfect high priest to come. Okay, so what's the takeaway here? Well, I think it's already been mentioned, and I want to repeat it because I think it helps as you read through these law books and all the details that can be overwhelming. All those offerings, the burnt, the grain, the peace, the sin, trespass, they're all symbolic. They're designed to allow a truly penitent and thankful worshiper to express faith in and love for God by the observance of these rituals. So when the heart was not truly penitent and thankful, God was not pleased with the ritual. And the offerings were burnt offerings because that symbolized the worshiper's desire to be purged of all sin and sent a sweet aroma of true worship up to God. And so the myriad of small details in the execution of the rituals was to teach exactness and precision that would extend to the way people obeyed their moral and spiritual laws, the way they revered every facet of God's word. So it's February 2026. What's that mean for me and you today? Well, I should be asking myself as I act out my faith, whether or not my heart and mind are truly faithful to Jesus. And do I really love him? Or am I just going through the motions? And one other thing that's certain, as I sort of back away from all these details in these ritual practices and look at the big picture, what am I seeing here? Well, God is gathering, forming, and establishing his people, and as a people, a community, and he's trying to help them be holy, just like God is holy. It's what makes them distinctive. So today, I can't be a good Christian apart from the local church, apart from other believers, as we encourage one another to faithfulness and perseverance. I not only have to be in love with Jesus with my heart, mind, and soul, but I must do so regularly with other believers. There are no Lone Ranger Christians, and even the Lone Ranger had a close friend to help him out. So despite the challenges of reading through some of this, Let's thank God today for Leviticus and for directions for living a holy life